Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos, and welcome to a video about class balance. We've got some tuning incoming on the weekly reset here. As we continue to monitor class performance in instanced group content, as well as PvP, we regularly adjust classes that are over or underperforming. We intend to make the following adjustments on the scheduled weekly maintenance, which is June 6th, June 7th, I think. Yeah, June 6th, June 7th, depending on what region of the world you're in. Blood Decay. All damage abilities increased by 8%. That is a large percentage for a patch note like this. The kind of standard aura buff they've been doing this expansion has been that like 3 to 4% range. But Blood Decay definitely needed something of this size. If we take a look at, like, in Raid statistics for damage for all tanks, Blood Decay was a pretty far outlier on the low end, and the same was true in Mythic Plus as well. So this is going to increase their single target and their AoE by 8% is a lot. It's still, I don't think, going to be a high damage tank, but I think that's now going to be solidly maybe low middle of the pack, which is good. That's a strong change for Blood Decay. Really great change. Druid. So Feral is getting an interesting change here. They are nerfing the... so they're buffing the spec. Sort of. It's weird, the set bonus. So the way the Feral set bonus works is that you get these stacks, and then you keep building them, and then at some point they reset, and they're reducing the chance for them to reset. But then when they reset, you get a bonus, and that bonus they're now buffing as well on the 4-piece. So it's a very interesting effect. Let me see if I can show you what it does as Feral. Yeah, so you get these stacks, and then you have this increasing chance to reset down, and then the 4-piece makes it so that you also get the agility and combo point generation. So the reset reduction here is going to mean less combo points, but it's going to mean you're going to be floating more stacks of this buff, which is, some good, some bad. And when the combo point stuff and the agility increase, you're going to get less combo points, but more agility when you have that 4-piece, basically, than you did before. So I'm not a Feral Druid scientist, but I think that this is probably good news for Feral Druids, and it should make the spec... It should mean that, stuff happening less often but more impactfully, I think is generally a good change to make as well, from just whether it's a buff or a nerf from like a design perspective. I think that's probably better as well. But I don't know how much of a percent buff this would represent. Probably a pretty minor one, if anything. Preservation Evoker. We are seeing a 15% damage increase to Disintegrate, because they want that to be more of a reward over using Living Flame for damage, since it has a essence cost, which seems fair. Preservation Evoker's damage used to be kind of super sick in like dungeons and stuff, but largely that was Fire Breath. I think putting some power into Disintegrate is a good place in the Preservation kit for their damage to be done. Beastmaster Hunter, 5% aura buff for them, and of course the pets as well. Can't forget the pets when you're buffing BM, or you're not really buffing them by very much at all. Historically something that the spec... Sometimes there's various like procs or stuff that only trigger off of your damage and not your pet's damage, and that usually really hurts BM. But of course, whenever they're doing an aura buff, they're going to remember to hit the pet abilities as well. And yeah, 5%, a large buff for BM. This was another spec that... has been showing up as a fairly low overall damage dealer. Yeah, you can see near the bottom of the statistics on, this is Mythic, all percentiles. What if we change this to like 95th? Yeah, on 95th it's doing even worse. And I bet on 99th it will be doing even worster. Yeah, so definitely a good target to take some damage increase there for both Raid and Mythic Plus. Fire Mage, also another one of the ones that's was down on the bottom of this graph on most of our looks here. Most of the different ones that we had in the last minute. Is also getting buffs here, not to PvP, but Pyroblast 5%, Fire Blast 10%, Fireball 10%, Phoenix Flames 10%, and Scorch 10% as well. So a little bit less into the Pyroblast, into the SKB Pyroblasts as well, but still moderate increases to some of their damage. I don't know how much their damage is going to come from these abilities and like the ignites that are created by them. My guess is not My guess is that this probably ends up being something like 3 or 4% overall for fire, but I'm not 100% sure. It could be more. I think Pyroblasts are most of the damage though, so I imagine it's closer to the 5 than the 10, but I'm not sure. Monk, Brewmaster. Compensation buffs are showing up for the nerfing of the Weapons of Order interactions with trinkets, with embellishments, with primordial stones. 3% all ability damage, Rising Sun kick damage 10%, Blackout kick damage 30%, Tiger Palm damage 30%. So single target increase here. Brewmaster already a reasonably good damage spec as well. And yeah, it's going to be even better now. It's going to be more good. I'm kind of surprised to see this. I didn't even necessarily think it needed compensation buffs. Single target though, it's definitely, I think that's definitely welcome. But yeah, I don't think this was like as down bad as like Fire Mage, BM Hunter, Blood DK type specs were, but still, good to see this here. I don't think this is the way to make them competitive with like Paladins and Demon Hunters for keys or anything though, and obviously they already were the best in Raid, but that's because of Mystic Touch. Mistweaver's getting a 3% healing increase, although again, this is not applying to PvP combat, which this is good. This is just good text so that they aren't worried about making these changes for specs that are good in PvP, or that even they're worried might be good in PvP if they make those changes. Mistweaver, another spec that is good already in Raid, but I think it's definitely a good one to target. And the thing about Mistweaver, Brewmaster, Mistweaver, and Windwalker all kind of have this problem, but Mistweaver, I think, more than Brew and Wind, has this problem where, like, even when it's quite good or fine, nobody plays it. Because, like, right now, I do think it's good. You've seen it in, the World Top 10. Several guilds use Mistweavers, but it is one of the lowest population specs in terms of number of people who play it. Sin Rogue, 5% to all ability damage. Seems like a good change. I think Rogue is definitely the class that, if I could pick one class, if I could pick two classes to do like a more of a deep dive on like how their talents are meshing together and do some more kind of like a mid-scope rework. They picked like Mage and Paladin for 10-1-5. I think I would have picked Hunter and Rogue, because I think Rogue definitely could use some adjustment and some re-examination of just where their damage is coming from and how all of their talents are fitting together. But for now, a 5% little band-aid to Sin Rogue seems fine. Seems like a good thing to do. Warlock is getting a nerf to Amplify Curse and actually a buff then to Teachings of the Satyr, which is for PvP. But this is a PvP change that's getting made that'll affect PvE as well, which is fine. Whenever you want specs to function as similarly as possible from one game mode to another. Stuff like cooldowns being different lengths from one mode to another is pretty bad. Stuff like one ability doing slight percent more in one ability versus another, or one form of the game versus another, is a lot less bad. So I think it makes sense that like if Amplify Curse is a problem in PvP, change the cooldown of it. And, that's not going to hurt PvE too much at all. Okay, Arms Warriors. Arms Warriors are not performing as well as we'd like in single target or low target count situations. 4% on all abilities, final mark damage 15%, deep wounds 5%, and rend 5% as well. Big buffs to Arms Warriors here. And then Prot Warriors, also not performing as competitively as we'd like. All damaging abilities 8%, auto attack damage 10%. Spell blocks duration 30 seconds from 20 seconds. Oh, that's big. That's really big actually. Now it's up for that's huge. I mean, spell block is pretty close to Divine Shield for blockable damage, for blockable magic damage. It's very, very powerful. So that increasing its duration by 50% is huge. Although of course the problem is still the 60 seconds where it's down, not the 30 while it's up. But that does help a lot. And then Thunderlord now is being buffed back up to 1.5 up to 4.5 on the cooldown of Demoralizing Shout from the 1 up to 3 if you're hitting 3 targets. So, all right. A lot of damage. So the damage increase here, and then the survivability, like Thunderlord and Spellblock changes are survivability side things. More demo shouts is definitely, although this is not something you'll really see. I don't think people use this in single target, even with the 1.5 instead of 1. So in a lot of cases, their survivability, I don't think, is going to be hugely different in a lot of cases. Definitely doing more damage. And then if you're making use of either Spellblock or Thunderlord, even if you're using Spellblock, the thing is, it's often like 20 and 30. That's such a long time already that maybe it's not actually changing how many important abilities are being affected by it, but that's interesting. Then there's a bunch of PvP changes. I'm surprised to not see Guardian Druid changes in here. That's something I'm surprised by in the PvE side of things. But other than that, I think this is a good set of changes being made to the live servers here, and bigger swings than I was expecting. I was kind of expecting to see, like, 4 or 5 specs changed by 4%, but they've actually changed, like, 10 specs here, and some of them have been, like, 5 to, obviously, this 8% being the biggest single number for an aura buff of specs here. So, yeah, big changes coming, and gonna do... It looks like they're mostly focusing on bottom-end specs coming up, not taking top-end specs down. I think for health of the game in M+, there is a need for, at least on the tank side, to take some of the top-end specs down. But I think that for raid, for M+ DPS, that's less necessary, and mostly just taking the lower specs up is the right way to go about it. So, very good set of changes here. This is, again, it's not exactly what I would have done, but it's, I think, still, this isn't one of those patch notes that you look at and you're like, what are they doing here? This is like, okay, these all are good changes. They all make sense. I'm glad to see all of them. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Remember, subscribe. Bye.